Hi guys, I want to talk to you today about the symptoms of trauma and PTSD so you can identify whether or not you have trauma in your past that is informing your current behavior. Now you may say to me, MC, wouldn't I know if I've been traumatized? Why do you need to tell me in this video whether or not I've been traumatized? I should know that already. The truth is that we often actually don't know that we're traumatized or what may have traumatized us. What is more common is that we display a series of symptoms and behaviors that are consistent with trauma and PTSD, but we're not aware of them at all. Just to give you an example, I'm a trauma expert, I think, right? I study trauma. I've been studying trauma since 2010. I write about it all the time. I talk to people who are traumatized. I'm very aware of what the symptoms of trauma are. And when I was creating the workbook for the Angry Therapist website, I did all of the activities to try them out, and I realized that there was something in my past that I didn't realize had been traumatic for me, and that I was exhibiting all these kinds of behavior that I wasn't aware of myself. So I am the trauma expert. I'm very aware of trauma and what it is, and I completely missed that this was something that traumatized me. It wasn't like a repressed memory situation. It was just that something happened that I knew was upsetting, and I didn't realize how upsetting it was. That's a very common experience. So I want to take just a couple minutes here to talk about some of the common but misunderstood or missed symptoms of trauma and PTSD. One of the first things that people experience or that people talk about are intrusion symptoms. These are any sort of recurrent involuntary memories that you have. If you find yourself repeating an action often and you don't really know why, or repeating a pattern, a behavior within your personal relationships, that can be indicative of the fact that there's trauma in your past. Traumatic nightmares are another sort of intrusive symptom. These don't have to be about the event, right? There's this misconception that traumatic memories mean that you have like literally a dream of the trauma over and over and over again. Sometimes that's the case. That does happen. But sometimes it's the case that you just have really horrifying nightmares all the time, right? If you're having nightmares all the time, that's not normal. And that does indicate that there's something going on, and it could be trauma from your past. Dissociative reactions. This is another one that's really misunderstood. If you've heard of the word dissociative reactions, if you know what that means, you probably think of it in the extreme, right? So there are very extreme dissociative reactions where people lose consciousness, they have no idea where they are or who they are, etc. They're, have amnesia, all these things. That's one extreme of dissociative reactions. But dissociative reactions actually occur on a scale. And so you can be all the way over here and having dissociative reactions that indicate that there's some trauma, but you're missing it because it's not that clear to you. So what are dissociative reactions? One really simple example that's not indicative of trauma, but will show you what sort of dissociation is the experience that we've all had when you get in the car and you drive from point A to point B and you arrive at point B, but you have no memory of driving there, right? That's dissociation. You're not in the moment. This happens, so that doesn't, if you've had that, everyone's had that experience, that's not necessarily indicative of trauma. But if you find yourself in a social situation where you're constantly feeling like the world is really surreal and like you're not really there, or like your body looks like it's someone else's body, even in just kind of a strange way, even if you know rationally that that's not true, that you sort of are experiencing the world that way, that's an example of dissociation. Another one of the symptoms is avoidance, right? This happens a lot. This is really easy to miss because we rationalize things in our mind really, really well. But if you are avoiding anything, like consciously avoiding or not consciously avoiding certain situations or stimuli because they're very uncomfortable for you, they're intensely uncomfortable, that's a huge indicator that there was a trauma related to whatever that is that you're trying to avoid in the past. Some of the other symptoms have to do with negative feelings and moods that are really persistent. So, the consistent belief that the world is an unsafe place or that people are evil. And those persistent negative beliefs can be turned to yourself, that you're a terrible person or that you're not good enough or that you're a failure or whatever. these often come from an initial trauma that made you distrust the world or yourself in it. And then the sort of most commonly referred to symptom in like the movies and literature is increased, what they call increased arousal. So irritable or really aggressive behavior that comes out of nowhere, right? You get in a fight or someone cuts you off in the street and you're swearing at them and you're following them home and you're feeling like you want to murder them, right? That's really aggressive behavior that doesn't necessarily fit with the situation. So that's a symptom of trauma. Self-destructive or reckless behavior is a huge red flag. This may be something that other people notice in you before you notice in yourself. Consistently trying to, or consistently finding yourself like acting recklessly, even though you rationally know that that's not safe, or trying to, participate in self-destructive behaviors, whatever they may be. Those are indicators of trauma. Hypervigilance is another one. This is really common. It's constantly being aware of what's going on and how it's affecting you and whether or not you're being attacked. Another one is exaggerated startle response. This is another one that other people may be able to point out in you before you see it in yourself. But, let's say you hear a noise outside and instead of just like letting that become part of the background, you jump 2 feet. You have this really exaggerated startle response that suggests that you're on edge, right? That you're dealing with something sort of under the surface that hasn't been dealt with. And so those are the symptoms. Hopefully that helps find some of the traumas that you've had in your past. I look forward to seeing you in the forums and talking to you myself.